Hey everybody, it's Joel Williams and
Chase Elleby
at Williams Elleby, and we're here today to talk to you about a topic that we get a lot of questions about, and that's the worth of your case. One very important aspect of what your case is worth is the type of damages that you can recover in your particular injury case. So why don't you get us started with the first type of damages, Chase?
Sure. So I guess the most common type of damages are what we call economic damages. And those are damages I like to say you can put on a blackboard, right? We actually have a number. So medical expenses is the number one type of damages you usually see in an injury case. Second one being wages, right? If you have lost wages, you can sort of quantify how much you lost in wages if you have to miss out. Property damage, right? How much damage was done to the car? How much damage was done to the house, whatever it might be. You can find a value for that sort of thing. Other economic damages are things like home modifications. You have to hire help. Anything that sort of stems from the case or stems from the injury that you can put a specific value on are typically what's considered economic damages.
Yeah, and as far as the meds go and the lost wages, that also includes past, present, and future. Right. So if you're going to have medical treatment in the future, you can't always blackboard that like you can past lost wages, but you can get reasonable estimates of what a future surgery is going to cost, what future physical therapy is going to cost, and that kind of stuff. As far as lost wages goes, that's a little more complicated when it comes to calculating future lost earnings. There's reduction values and all that kind of stuff that you have to take into account. But basically, those are the four most common types of economic or damages you can actually write down and add up and subtract and all that kind of stuff that you can recover. Right. The second type of damage is what we call non-economic damages. And the most common thing that people think about with non-economic damages would be pain and suffering damages. That also includes past, present, and future, right, if applicable, because right, maybe your pain and suffering's done and you're not going to suffer into the future. But you want to determine the amount of pain and suffering, what you should be awarded for that, based upon the length that you suffer and the degree of your suffering. So the more pain that you endure, the longer you have to endure it, the more you should be awarded. The less amount of time that you have to endure that pain, or the less severe that pain, the less you should be awarded. There's also emotional distress damages. That includes things like stress, anxiety, worry, all of those things that come along with everything you have to deal with after an injury. Sometimes it can be severe and kind of bleed over into economic damages if you're diagnosed with something like PTSD and you actually have bills associated with that. There's also a type of damages in the state of Georgia and many other states called loss of consortium, and that would be a claim that actually your spouse would have for loss of society and services of you due to your injuries. Sometimes it's appropriate to bring that claim, sometimes not.
Yeah,
we typically,
depends, right?
Yeah, we kind of make that decision on a case-by-case basis based on the severity of the client's injury. So if they're paralyzed or have a severe brain injury and the spouse has to be the full-time caregiver for their spouse, then a loss of consortium claim is certainly appropriate. If it's just something where somebody's sore for a few days and then they're okay, it might be a little overreaching to ask for that, right? Disfigurement, if you have things that your body's not the same as it used to be and you have to look at it all the time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like scars is a good example, things like that, burns, we see that a lot. So
exactly.
I think kind of a thing or a question we always get about non-economic damages or the kind of general pain and suffering damages, or what are they worth? Yeah. Right? It's impossible to put a dollar figure on something like that. So the actual definition in Georgia, at least, is whatever the enlightened conscience of a jury decides it's worth. Yeah. And of course, there's certain factors like Joel was discussing, like the length of the injury, the length of the treatment, that sort of go into the calculation of what you ask a jury to award. But that's usually where the rub is in most of our cases, is what is that value worth? What is a jury going to award this person? So yeah,
somebody made a comment on one of our previous videos, like, sure would be nice if you could just tell us what a rear end chiropractic lower
Right.
back treatment.
It would be very nice. I agree.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have a job if we could just
Right.
write it down.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, all kinds of factors like where did it happen?
Yeah.
What kind of person are you? What kind of person is the defendant?
Right.
What kind of jury, the demographics that they're going to be pulling from? Who would be sitting on the jury? What
Right.
insurance company you're dealing with? How good is your lawyer? All of
Yeah, how
these.
bad was the wreck?
Yeah.
Right? Fear and shock of the impact is an item that can be considered when determining what's the pain and suffering worth, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a bad wreck, a jury can say, well, dang, that was a bad wreck. It was car got flipped over. There's a value that should be assessed to just that moment in time,
Yep.
right? So that might not be there and just kind of a minor fender bender.
Yeah. So I know it's frustrating. Like everybody wants to know the quick answer. Like,
Sure.
what is this worth? What should I ask for? And when we have individual consultations with people and we can dig into their personal situation, it's much easier to come up with a number. But in a platform like this on YouTube, it's impossible. We can't.
And even
just
then,
say,
there's no specific number. It's usually just a range. Like this is what you can look at. Where your case would land under these sets of circumstances. But
Yeah. So you
even
got-
that's not accurate.
Right. So you got economic damages, non-economic damages, and punitive damages. You want to tell us what punitive
Sure.
damages
Yeah.
are?
Yeah. Quickly, punitive damages are just damages that are punishment damages, right? You see those in DUI cases. You see those in cases where a corporation willfully or wantonly acted in a way that caused harm. So those are the types of cases that, again, DUI is a classic one. Driving under the influence of drugs is another example. And those are damages that are added on top of the economic, non-economic damages that are sent strictly as a message to either the defendant or that, let's say it's a corporation to that business area as punishment for the conduct that they took or that they did prior to that injury taking place.
Yep. And then in very sad and severe situations, there's also damages that can be recovered for wrongful death. We're not getting into a state-by-state analysis here because those damages that can be awarded for wrongful death vary significantly from state to state. So like in Georgia, for example, it's the full value of the life of the decedent from the decedent's perspective. So you kind of have to put yourself in the person who passed away's shoes and determine what their life was worth to them. Alabama's crazy. You can only get punitive damages for wrongful death. I don't understand it. I don't know who wrote that law, but they were sitting in a different chair than me when they did it. So it varies significantly from state to state, but if there is a death, there can be a state-based damages and wrongful death damages. So I think that's the four major categories of damages that can be recovered. So when you're considering the worth of an injury case, the type of damages that can be recovered is one significant factor to consider. There are other factors to consider like fault and all of these other things. So this is not the end-all be-all of what the case is worth. There's other things that have to be considered. You can probably go through our 52 weeks of personal injury video and find a detailed analysis of a lot of those things. But that kind of wraps it up for this week. You got anything else on the type of damages?
No, I think we covered it. There's, like I said, these are the four main ones, but there's also little subsets of damages that, depending on the case we can seek. But for the most part, these are the main damages you're going to see in most all personal injury cases, especially in Georgia.
Yep. Well, we hope this video has been helpful to you. If so, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you next week.